I've been thinking a lot about new things. And that is largely because, as of late, I've sort of been experiencing stuff as new. And it found me thinking about some times in life where something new happened to me. And I'm not sure if you've experienced this, not like you've found something new. And it's something that's old, but you've found it for the first time and it's new. And it's amazing and it's life-changing and you think it's the best thing. I can think of a couple of times in life for me where that's been a really, really big moment. And one of them was when I was in year 11. It was 2007 and I was doing work experience at Cosmic Sound in Osborne Park. It's a music shop. And I was spending 2 weeks there, and I'd get the train to Glendalough train station, and I'd walk to Cosmic Sound every morning and afternoon for 2 weeks. And I Googled it. I never knew how far the walk was. It was 2Ks, and I found out that we were taking the long route when I walked. So there was a shorter route, but Google Maps wasn't around in 2007, so I walked the way that I thought was right. And during this time, I would listen to a lot of music. So it's 2007, I'm in year 11, I'm in a band, I'm thinking music is the best thing in the world, but a very, very, very specific music is cool. So for me and my friendship group, we liked 70s and 80s rock, and that was it. You weren't allowed to venture out of that. It was very important that you didn't venture out of that. I liked some emo and some punk rock, some pop punk, and I kept that very quiet because I was shunned by my friends if they knew that I liked Jimmy Eat World and Good Charlotte. So that was off to the side. But, so we're listening to Thin Lizzy, we're listening to Led Zeppelin, we're listening to that kind of world, Jimi Hendrix, all that kind of stuff. And we were allowed to venture into the 80s and kind of go hair metal, and I really dove into hair metal. So I thought Guns N' Roses and Poison and Motley Crue, there's some nods, and I thought that was just the best stuff in the world. And that consumed my musical life for a while. And then, when I'm walking for 2 weeks, I got my iPod Nano, right? iPod Nanos, for the younger folk here, they're like iPhones, but all you could do was listen to music. And it was very good, and someone had told me to listen to Bruce Springsteen. So I bought Bruce Springsteen's Greatest Hits, and I gave it a run. And there's 2 songs on that album that were released as singles for the Greatest Hits, Blood Brothers and This Hard Land. And I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen. I'm walking 2Ks there and back, so 4Ks a day, just listening to Bruce Springsteen for 2 weeks. And I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me that Bruce Springsteen is the best? And my whole life, changed. I'm like, why? Bruce Springsteen's been around since the 70s. Why didn't he count? When it came to the rock that we're allowed to listen to, my suspicion is he had a sax player doing most of the lead stuff, Clarence Clements, and you weren't allowed, we liked guitar solos, not sax solos. But I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen, I'm like, this is life-changing. And that might sound like an exaggeration, but genuinely, my delving into Bruce Springsteen as a 16-year-old was life-changing. So then I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen, and Meeks can attest to this. Nothing has changed. When I like something, I latch onto that music really, really hard. So Meeks knows words to songs that she doesn't like because I just play them all the time. So that was me with Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, I need more than just this Greatest Hits. So I get Born to Run, I get Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I get all of it, and I'm like, this is the best. And then I find out about Bob Dylan, right? And I'm like, why hasn't anyone told me about Bob Dylan? Here I am listening to hair metal with these shallow lyrics about kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I didn't know you were allowed to sing about other things. That was kind of my upbringing of music, it was just like love songs. And then I'm into these guys, it was just like the rock and roll lifestyle. And I was like, this isn't very tangible to me. I don't live this life. Axl Rose. And then I find Bob Dylan. And I'm listening to the first 5 albums. I'm like, this is life-changing. So, naturally, I go to buy a harmonica, right? I'm playing guitar. Been listening to Bruce Springsteen, so I'm like, I need to buy a harmonica. So I go to Cosmic Sound, and there's a guy there. He was in a band that I liked, and I said, I need a harmonica because I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen and I'm listening to Bob Dylan. He's like, have you heard of Neil Young? And I was like, yes, I hadn't. I thought he meant Neil Diamond. So I've gone home, and I've put on Hot August Night on the record player because everyone has Hot August Night in their record collection, right? So I'm listening. I'm like, there's no harmonica in Neil Diamond. And then it clicks, it's Neil Young. And then I listen to Neil Young, and I'm like, why hasn't anyone told me about Neil Young? And then for the next 5 or 6 years, my life is consumed by those 3 artists. And genuinely, these 3 artists were life-changing for me. I'm listening to this music that is not very easy for me to grasp. I'm listening to these artists that are singing great rock songs, but songs that didn't mean anything to me. And then I start listening to Bruce Springsteen. He's singing about just ordinary people driving cars. And then I'm listening to Bob Dylan, and he's singing about getting angry about stuff that matters in the world. And then I'm listening to Neil Young, and he's doing much the same. And I'm just like, where has this been? And I'm not sure if you have experienced that moment in your life where there's something that's been around for ages, but you've grabbed it for the first time and you're like, why didn't anyone tell me about this? Why have I only just found out about this now? And maybe for you, that's similar to your journey towards Jesus. Maybe you're like, why hasn't anyone told me about this great news? For me, my journey towards Jesus was slower. But there was that moment for me. I understood who Jesus was. I knew the Christmas and Easter story and all those sorts of things. But there was something about what I understood of the people who liked Jesus that didn't really quite gel with me. And I wrestled with that. My thoughts about church, my ideas about what the media portrayed church to be, all of those sorts of things, and even what the Bible was. So I knew this guy Jesus, and I thought he was pretty cool, and yet it's good that he did those stuff, but that's kind of where it ended. And then when I was in year 12, I was chatting with a teacher, and we kind of dove a bit deeper. And we read more than just the Gospels, and more than just the Old Testament stories that I'd learnt in a 90s kind of kids' church. And I read the book of James. And the book of James, the letter from James, is one of my favorite things I've ever read. Again, a life-changing moment where I was like, after I found out about who Jesus was, why didn't we lead with this? Why didn't we lead with these 5 chapters? Because it made sense to me. It made sense, and I could grasp something. Here's what you should do as followers of Jesus in 5 pretty concise chapters. And it's really stuck with me, the book of James. It's kind of been at big parts of my life. And recently I've reread it and re-engaged with it, and I found some new stuff again. And I'm like, why was I not able to see this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Why is this just being revealed to me now? I feel like this would have been really helpful for 23-year-old Brendan. But I am picking up on it now. And I'd love to look at the book of James with you this morning. We're going to go to chapter 1, and we are going to read through the whole chapter. We're not going to engage in all of it, but we are going to read it all. And my encouragement to you with the book of James this week is read it through. Read it through in one sitting. It's 5 chapters. 3 of them are not very long, and 2 of them that are long are not very long. It'll take you about 20 minutes to read through the book of James. Read through the book of James. Don't pay attention to any of the headings or anything like that. Just read it as a letter, as if it was written. And what you'll find when you read it like that is all of these things kind of pop up a number of times. It's not like you read chapter 1 and then you have to wait for chapter 2 to pick up the things that are there. There's references and there's points, like many of the letters and many of the stories in the Bible, that make sense when you read it in a longer format. So my encouragement to you this week, read James in one sitting. If you can, do it a couple of times in the week. And I think it'll be really, really good. But we're going to open up to chapter 1. If you don't have it, it's going to be up on the screen. And we are going to read chapter 1 of James. So I've done 1 chapter. You only need to do 4 this week. That's easy. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. To the 12 tribes scattered among the nations. Greetings. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If anyone lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and have no doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high positions, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wildflower. For the sun rises with a scorching heat and withers the plants. Its blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away, even while they go about their business. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desires and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like the shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Do not merely listen to the word and do so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror, and after looking at himself goes away immediately and forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongue deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. The thing I love about reading that as one go is you see James jumps around a bit. He's writing a letter and he's jumping around it. It's not a clear, concise pattern. And when we try and read like a clear, concise pattern, we can miss stuff. There's some things that are re-highlighted. And as you read chapter 2, chapter 3, you'll see the same things kind of crop up, almost like a real letter written to real people that was useful for them in their time. And we're going to focus on verses 22 to 27 this morning. And verses 22 says this: do not merely listen to the word and do so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at their face in the mirror and after looking at themselves goes away and immediately forgets what they look like. And hopefully this is a pretty easy image to grab hold of. The core idea here is we should be engaging with the word so it can change who we are. And because of that change, we should become people who represent Jesus and shine Jesus to those who are around us, making his love tangible and real so that others can find salvation through him. And we can all think of a time, right, that it's been hard to get work done, when it's been hard to read, when it's been hard to do an assignment or work or something, and you've just had to get it done, and you've got it done, and you've handed it in, and it hasn't really soaked in, right? That was most of my degree. And you just get it done because you have to. We can think of times where that's been a real reality in our life. But we can also think of times where we've engaged with what we've had to do because we love it. We've engaged with our work. We've read it. We've gone, oh, I actually get this. I actually understand this. I want to read more. And that's what this first part is saying. Hey, let it soak in so you can live it out. If it doesn't soak in, you can't really live it out. If you're just reading it for the sake of reading it, that's not going to change your life, and that's not going to change the lives of others around you. How can you express something you don't really believe in? And James is setting the reader up for something really great. Don't be someone who forgets what they read. Don't be someone who forgets what they've been taught, but soak it up and then go and live it out. And I think we have a pretty good understanding of this, right? I think that's a pretty clear analogy, metaphor there from James. But I think what can be tough is the word. What does the word mean? Does that mean our whole Bible? Does that mean we have to read our whole Bible and understand our whole Bible and let the whole Bible soak in so we might go live it out? And that can be daunting. And for me, when I see words like the word or scripture or anything like that, my mind immediately goes to, that's the whole Bible. And then I get daunted and I get scared. But here, the consensus from the scholars who kind of really know James, and kind of the consensus in general, really, I'm not saying anything out of turn that might be wild here, is the word means the gospel message of Jesus. So when James speaks about the word, he's not saying understand your whole Bible. Now, we can know that for a couple of reasons. One, the whole Bible wasn't written when James was writing. He wouldn't have had access to a bunch of things, right? He's kind of first AD, and he hasn't got everything. So when he's saying the word, and we see this through the book of James, the letter from James, the word is the Gospels of Jesus Christ. So the stories that attest to who Jesus is, what he did, what he claimed to be. So your Matthew, Mark, your Luke's, your John's. And Acts kind of counts as well, I suppose. But the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ is what James is speaking to here. And this was one of my new moments where I kind of picked it up and I was like, well, that's helpful. Because now this is tangible and it's not as daunting. I don't need to understand everything from the Old Testament. I don't need to understand the minor prophets. I don't need to understand what's going on in Revelation to be able to live out a life that James is calling us to. I just need to understand who Jesus is, what he was doing, and what he calls us to. And that is the same when James speaks about the law. When Paul speaks about the law and when we read the law, sometimes we are talking about the Mosaic law. James is purely speaking about the law that Jesus sets. Love God, love others as you love yourself. So whenever he says the perfect law, the royal law, any kind of law, James is speaking directly about love God and love others. And I think those two things are really helpful, but a little bit nuanced when we pick up a book from the New Testament like James. So for us to just say, understand and read your Bible, and then go live that out, you should, right? We should read our Bible. We should try and get a grasp. But there's people with PhDs who do it full time and still barely understand the Bible, right? So we need to cut ourselves some slack. And it can also be unhelpful and make us not want to pick it up. When James is saying here the word, he's saying, hey, understand who Jesus is. Understand what he's called you to, and understand the life that he lived. And I like that because it makes it really tangible. The gospel isn't just the Easter story and the Christmas story, right? The gospel is the life of Jesus, the stuff he did, the way he treated people, his radical love, his radical way of speaking, his radical way of teaching. James isn't saying here, understand the evangelical aspects of Jesus' life and go and live those out. He's saying, understand Jesus' life, the love that he shows for people, the way he lives, the character he carries, and live that out. And that's really hard. But it's what we're called to do. That's not new, right? That's not a new idea for us. And then it says, but whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. There you go, the perfect law, the royal law, where we see the law is that idea of Jesus, the standard that is set. So you could read this, but whoever looks intently to the truth that we should love God with all our hearts, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength, and we should love our neighbors as we love ourselves, and continues in that, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. That's essentially what James is saying here. The perfect law would have been understood as, that's that message that Jesus gave us when he pulled the law down into two things. Again, I find that very helpful. Here's what we're called to. I also find it very challenging because when I don't understand something, I feel like I don't need to do it. But when I understand something, I'm like, I can do that now. And when that's something that's lived, I think that is life-changing. When our call is to love others and to love God, I think that is a life-changing thing. And I see that here. I get really encouraged here, not just on a Sunday morning when I come in and someone says, hey, how you doing? And I genuinely want to know how I'm doing. Someone came up to me last week after the service when Phil said they're going away, and they said, are you going to be okay for the next 3 weeks? How can we be praying for you? How can we be caring for you? There's someone who is going through a whole lot of stuff in their own life and still finds time to call me and see how I'm doing. And I see all these things as amazing acts of who Jesus is, living that out in life. And I find that really encouraging. This letter gives us tangible things to grasp onto. It's like we're given this blueprint. Read the Gospels, but don't just read them. Live them out. Now there is a fun word here in this passage, and that word is blessed. Right? They will be blessed in what they do. And the word blessed in 2025 can be a little bit dicey. There's lots of different thoughts about what we means to be blessed. So we mean here what blessed means, right? Because if the first part is correct, we go and do that, but we think we're going to be blessed, we need to know what's happening, right? Because then we might do it for the wrong reasons. Blessed is not any kind of connection to prosperity doctrine. It's not some kind of approval, like some kind of if you do this and you'll be blessed, then your acts will save you. We deal with that in the next chapter if you're going to read this week. But that's not the case. That's not what we're talking about here. I like what N.T. Wright says about this. He says, blessed is not a reward from action, but it's the natural fruit of embodying the gospel. James echoes the Sermon on the Mount here, blessed are. It is not to do good works to earn blessings, but it's rather to be understood to be living God's way, and that is the blessing itself. To be living God's way is the blessing itself. So as you read the Sermon on the Mount, the good life is. That's what Jesus is saying. The good life is for someone who lives like this. It's not saying, hey, live like this and there you will get. Because we've got testament of thousands of years of that not being the case. But we do have live this life, and it's the good way to live. It's a good way to be part of community. It's the good way to care for each other. The idea here is if God is good, then if He is worth following, if He is worth believing in, then surely the best life lived is the life that God calls us to. Again, we get to read that idea of that golden rule, loving God and loving others. And then we get to my favorite part of this passage, and almost my favorite part of James. But my favorite part of James is verses 2 and 4 of chapter 1, because I have a sword at home. I think I've told you this. I have a sword, and it has, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds. That's like the first memory verse I had. So I think that's still my favorite little passage. But I really like this. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongue deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. That's a pretty big statement. So we get this example of living out the gospel that we have been reading, and James uses speech. So he uses speech here, and if you look just before, in the previous chapters, he also brings up speech. This isn't the first time, second time, third time, or fourth time that James is going to talk about taming the tongue and about being good in your speech. As you read through, you will see that. And it's not the only time that it's referenced in the letters. Speech and the way we talk to each other is referenced all the time. And that's because they're in a tight-knit community, and conversation is the main thing that they're doing with each other. They're chatting to each other, they're talking. So let your speech be something that is good. Let it be something that is wholesome. And he says, a worthless religion, worthless, is if you can't keep a tight rein on the way you speak. Now, it wasn't just speak. They would have read this, and we read this, right? And you go, well, that's a bad thing. What are the other bad things in my life? Highlighting the idea of tongue and speaking here would have really resonated. If your words are hurtful, if you're gossiping, if you're constantly talking about stuff that is largely unhelpful to people, if you're overly sarcastic to the point that people might not get it, I share that one mostly for me. If we're doing these things, James says that your religion is worthless. And what we can do here, right, is we can just have not a high view of the word religion. And then we can kind of bypass this. Because up until 80 years ago, the word religion was very, very important. But then what we did was we didn't like the word anymore because not at large, but people in the church started to do things that weren't living up to the standard of what we're called to. And then people don't like the word religion anymore. So what we do is we don't use it. And we say Jesus follower. Or, we say I'm not religious, I'm this or I'm that. Or we say Christian with a noun after it. Or something like that. But we're talking about that here. I actually think we should fight for the word religion because I think we're given a blueprint of what it should be. And I think instead of dismissing it, because we'll ruin words, right? People are already looking for ways to not use Jesus follower now because of the last 5 or 10 years of the way that people have lived their lives as followers of Jesus. So now we're trying to distance ourselves from that word as well. But what we're called to here is to just live better, up our standard. Be people who love God and love others as we would love ourselves. So we can't just dismiss the word. We have to look at this, and you can substitute whatever word you might like instead of religion in there. If it's Jesus follower, those who consider themselves a follower of Jesus, yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues, deceive themselves, and their following of Jesus is worthless. And James is clear here. Religion that our Father accepts is this, pure and faultless. And he says this, look to the orphans and the widows in their distress, and keep yourself from being polluted by the world. Now, as we finish, there's a couple of really interesting ideas here. The first thing is all those things are defensive. They are not offensive. They are defensive ideas. Look after the widow and the orphan in their distress. So the widow and orphan in James's time were the least of these. Now, James wasn't saying if you see a homeless person, don't care for them. He's saying widow and orphan are at the bottom of the rung. Look after and love them and everybody up from them. Because it was easy to dismiss. It was easy to say, we're going to look after these people and up. James is saying, these are the worst. These are the lowest. Not the worst. These are the most marginalized. These are the most lonely. These are the most desperate. Look after them and everybody up from that. Widow and orphan might not be what we use today, but we need to decide what it is. What is the lowest of our society? And how are we caring for them and everybody up in their distress? Defensive. It's not an offensive word. It's a look after. And then finally, he says, keep yourself from being polluted by the world. Again, a defensive. It's not offensive. It's not go out and attack the world. It's not go out and take on the world. It's keep yourself from being polluted from it. A defensive idea. I like this. This is what one of the guys says in the commentaries. They say, James is stressing here that we are not to physically withdraw from the world, but we are to ethically separate ourselves from moments. We are part of this world. We're here. Right? We're here. We're with our friends. We're with our workplace. We're with our uni. We're with whatever it is, our sports club. But we must ethically separate ourselves from these values. And what are the values? What are the things that pollute? Well, all the 5 guys that I've been reading, the 5 kind of key scholars on James, all say the same 3 things. They say greed that makes you wealthy. They say power that makes you hungry. And they say status that you don't need. Those are the 3 things that consistently came up. Greed of wealth, hunger for power, and desire for status. They are the 3 things. And again, as we read James, he names those things. We see that that is what James is speaking to. I don't think our culture has changed that much. I think they are still largely the things that pull us away and drive our decisions. And I think it's a big challenge for us, but I think it's a good challenge. And I wonder how it might reshape all of our weeks. I wonder if it will change the way that you interact with one of the many homeless people who stand at traffic lights. I wonder if it will change the way you interact with someone at work who likes to gossip and sometimes you like to jump in as well. I wonder if you'll think twice about making that joke at someone else's expense, even though it's not really all that mean. I wonder if you will read the Gospels in light of this week and see how you can connect that with the life that you should live. And my gut feeling is we do this stuff pretty well. But I also know, listing those things, that they're things that I don't do well. They're things that I'm quite easily brushing off. And I'd love for the band to come up, and as we finish and we get to sing that first song, Sing Wherever I Go, because I think that's a great song for us to sing in light of this, because I don't want us to get somber and thinking, man, how bad am I? Because that's not what following Jesus is about. Following Jesus is about knowing that we can be more like him. And I think as we stand and sing this song, God is for me, he's not against me. All my life, all I know, I'm going to sing wherever I go. That's what this is about. We're not literally singing wherever we go, right? Maybe Joseph is. He likes to sing. But we're not singing wherever we go. We are living out the call of Christ wherever we go. So as we sing this song, there's going to be things that pop into your head. Hold on to those, feel uncomfortable about them, and then go, right, and live it out.